Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Hope you're all having a great day. And with the new league year starting now it's 4 o'clock, I figured I'd take a look at some of the biggest moves so far through free agency and kind of give some bigger winner or losers so far. I'll have a full breakdown next week of like all the big moves. So I figured do a video of the biggest winners and losers. So let's start with the Raiders, who made a big splash signing Tyler Linderbaum from the Ravens, which as a Ravens fan I was sad to see him go, but they were not going to pay him that much money. $27 million. It is only a 3-year deal, so it's not like it's that much long term accountability. I do think like it was a huge overpay, but the Raiders had a lot of cap space, and not only do they have to get to a salary cap, but there's also a salary floor in the NFL. So you need to get up to that certain number, and I like that move. I like the linebacker moves of both Coy Walker and Kobe Dean. I know both guys have their injury history and haven't been the greatest, but both are still really talented. And I mean, Vegas needs to get better on defense. Obviously, it sucks that they're getting back Max Crosby, which was craziness. We'll talk about that next week in like a full breakdown, but that was crazy. Quiddy Pay, it was a lot of money. It is only a 2-year deal, technically, because of the guaranteed money, which is in the NFL, that's what it's really about, how much guaranteed. I like them bringing Jalen Naylor as another guy assigned yeah, alongside Trey Tucker, um, and Jack Bash and Dante Thornton as just another guy from Mendoza to throw the ball to. Eric Stokes, I thought was a nice bring back. They also traded for Taron Johnson. Um, and then they didn't really lose much. I mean, right, they lost two guys who went to the Panthers, but they didn't really lose much. So I thought they were a huge winner. Another team I thought was a huge winner was the Tennessee Titans. I mean, they went out, they spent a lot of money. Wandale Robinson, I thought was an amazing get. Like, yes, he's not a star wide receiver one, but he gives Cam Ward an elite playmaker to throw to, and they need that. Like, yes, you have guys like Io Manor, DK, but those guys, are one young and also, unproven whether, and the guy knows the scheme. Um, I like the defensive moves of JFM and Alontae Taylor, both coming on. A solid guy. I like those. I like Cordell Flott coming in as another corner. Because L'Jarius Sneed's gonna more than likely be gone. Um, so I like that. And yeah, I mean Tennessee went out, made a lot of big time splashes, even a lot more guys down here. And I like these moves. I think it'll really help raise the floor of this team and give the Titans, a better shot to compete in 2026 than they have the past couple of years. Another team I thought won was as sad as I was going to say, it's the Steelers because they addressed a lot of their issues. They bring in Jamel Dean, another corner alongside Joey Porter Jr. to finally give Pittsburgh hopefully two guys on the back end. They bring in Rico Dowdle. You lose Kenneth Gainwell, but you replace him with Rico Dowdle, who I think is a better running back and can give this offense another push. And then they traded for Michael Pittman Jr., who kind of needed to be moved off when the team brought back Alec Pierce, and he's now the wide receiver two, alongside with DK, a wide receiver one, and it gives this offense a much more needed um much more needed help. Dean on the back end, they were going to bring back Cam Hayward. His move is all right. I mean, they didn't really lose much. They did lose Isaac Sayamalo, which I think will hurt. Arizona him a hefty price. Kenneth Gainwell, James Pierre, who's kind of risen the ranks. But I mean, you got Jamel Dean, so he's a better player. as sad as it is to say, the Steelers are huge winners. And then a huge loser, in my opinion, would be the other team in Pennsylvania, the Eagles, because they lost so much. They lost Jalen Phillips. They weren't going to pay him that much money, but you lose him. They lost Nakobe Dean. They lost Reed Blankenship. It doesn't show on here. They lost Jahan Dotson, and AJ Brown's been in trade rumors. Who knows what's happening there? They've lost so many starters. The only really big guy they brought in was Tariq Woolen, who I thought was a good deal. It's worth up to 15 million. So he's a veteran guy who can be out there alongside DeJean and Quinion Mitchell. But when you lose a lot of starters, especially on that defense, which was the main reason Philly was competitive last year because of Vic Fangio's defense, like Dean was eventually going to have to leave because they brought back Zach Bond last year and drafted Shahad Campbell. But you lose Jalen Phillips, you lose Reed Blankenship, two guys, especially Phillips, who really impacted this defense a lot, and the Eagles, who needed to, keep these guys to continue to make runs, especially if the offense is not that great. I think Philly is a big loser. Another big loser in my eyes, even though they've been making more rooms, is my Ravens. I mean, yes, they brought in Trey Hendrickson, John Simpson, and then they brought back Shinobi Awuzie and Jalen Hawkins, along with Durham Smythe. So they are making moves after restructuring Lamar's contract. But, they rescinded the Max Crosby deal, which, I mean, I get that, they might have been, scared off by the injury, but you lose out on him. And then since they thought they were going to have Crosby, they didn't think they could make any other moves. So they lose out on bringing back Tyler Linderbaum or anybody else. I mean, they've lost maybe the most players out of any team, and plenty of them went to John Harbaugh with the Giants. And you lose a lot of guys, and they haven't really they have brought in some good players, but it's just when you lose a lot of guys, especially your center, who I mean was a key piece in helping this offense become one of the best in the league. I mean, I still don't understand how they let Likely go and brought back Andrews, and he ended up getting a similar contract to what Andrews got. Like those two guys, I mean, Likely was going to leave, but it, the contract he got makes it seem like what. Um, but I think the Ravens are a huge loser. Like, yes, they've brought in some guys to replace some of the guys that are leaving, but Max Crosby my Max Crosby trade falls through. Um, they do have the 14th pick, so they can bring in an offensive lineman to keep Lamar upright. But it's just the Ravens coming into the offseason, it felt like everything was going right. They bring in the right coach. He assembles a great staff. It felt like if they could make the right moves, they could be back up to being a Super Bowl contender. And instead, they are still a Super Bowl contender, but I feel like they've made not the right moves to help this team be as great. Another team who I think is a winner is the Commanders, and they made some more signings along with these, but they went out and got Dafe away, which yes, it was an overpay, and yes, he's not worth $25 million a year, but Washington needed to get better on the pass rush. I mean, it was clear that they needed to be better on defense, which is why a lot of these guys are on defense. Um, so I thought it was a good move. Yes, an overpay. And then you get Caleb on Chason on the other side, who had a great year in New England. Leo Chanel at linebacker to finally give this team um a linebacker that's young and isn't old Bobby Wagner. They brought in Chigakonkwo, who actually went to Maryland, along with Nick Cross, which I thought were both tremendous moves for Washington to bring in. The new tight end Zach Ertz wasn't going to be the long term guy there, and he's coming off an injury, and then getting another guy on the back end. The Amik Robertson deal I thought was good. Tim Settle coming back, um, obviously Mariota, and then they haven't they only lost Tyler Biotis, which they only released him because they were going after Tyler Linderbaum, who they didn't get. I think Washington's made great moves to really give this team a better floor so that you know when when they do get injured, it's like they'll have a better team around Jaden to be more successful. Um, Another team that I thought was a winner was the Chiefs, which is to be expected when you bring in the Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker. Finally, they get a guy who can be a reliable back. Like ever since 2018 Kareem Hunt, which was the last like really great running back they've had, they've kind of just relied on older veterans or young talented guys, and it hasn't really worked out. And Walker can give this team a boost at the running back position. And whenever Mahomes comes back, they can have a guy who he can just hand the ball off to, and Walker can make those moves. I like the Alohi Gilman signing because you lose Brian Cook and both corners to the Rams. You got to get some guys up there. Kyra Tonga to plug up the middle, especially with Mike Dana leaving, um, alongside Chris Jones is a phenomenal pickup. Bringing back Kelsey and Thorne were decent moves. Um, they did lose plenty of guys, including two guys to the Rams, both Trent McDuffie the trade and then Jalen Watson signed with them. But I think KC has really, made well so far in the first couple of days of free agency. And yeah, I think moving on to another team that I thought was a winner, and that was the Panthers. The two big signings of Jalen Phillips and Devin Lloyd, I thought were phenomenal. Like, yes, this is a huge overpay by the Panthers, but they weren't going to get him unless they overpaid him. And Phillips, yes, he has his injury concerns heading, from college to the pros, but when healthy, he is amazing against both the pass and the run. And the Panthers needed a boost on that defense. Kevin Lloyd fixes another big issue, which was the linebacker. And I thought this was a steal. Like 3 years, 45 million. I thought he was going to get 20, 25 million per year. He only gets 15, and it's a great deal. Most of the other guys are like re-signs or backups. I mean, Luke Fortner will probably be the new starting center since they lost Cade Mays to the Lions. Um, but I thought Carolina, two huge swings on the first day to improve this defense. And now at 19, they could go with a tight end or a wide receiver, help out this offense. And then you're heading into 2026 with an improved defense, an offense that hopefully will be more consistent, and Carolina can contend in this division. Um, Moving on to trying to think about some other teams that might have had big free agencies. Um, oh, the Saints. Bringing in Travis Etienne, I thought was a phenomenal pick. Alvin Kamara, who knows what his future is, but New Orleans needed a better running back, especially they were throwing out like Audric Estime, Devin Neal out there. And those guys are fine, like RB2s and threes, but they need a guy who can, be explosive. And ETN is that type of guy. They improved the offensive line with David Edwards, which I thought was a phenomenal fit. You have him and Banks on the left side. You have Fuaga at right tackle. We'll see what they do at center and right guard. But New Orleans, helping out Tyler Shuck. Well, they can go receiver now, not needing to go Jeremiah Love at 8, even though he probably might not be available then. And, you know, I thought this was phenomenal. Caden Ellis, I thought was a good deal, helping out the linebacker core, especially when they lost Demario Davis. Noah Fant as a backup tight end to help out. I thought, the Saints team really were aggressive in attacking, and I thought it was a great sign. Um, I think, how about the Jets? They made a lot of moves, really to try to just make the floor of this team better. The trade for Geno Smith, which I thought honestly was a good move. Smith, didn't have the great year in Vegas, but I think no quarterback was going to do well on that team. They were just a disaster. But he comes to New York, where the offensive line does need some improvements, especially when they lost both guards and John Simpson and AVT. So those will have to be figured out. But Gino has guys to throw to. Um, Brees Hall in the backfield, and I think the Jets team, can be better in 2026 with these additions. Demario Davis, Joseph Osai, Kingsley, Egbare, even Nashawn Wright, and even the trade for Minka Fitzpatrick gives this Jets defense, just better players out there, and it really gives this team better identity to where they can look better and maybe be more competitive out there. And maybe Aaron Glenn gets to a third year. They get their quarterback in 27, and maybe this team finally can have a bright future after all these long, hard years. With the Jets, trying to think about like other teams that might have made a couple big moves. How about the Falcons? I mean, the Tua signing, which isn't on here because it can't be official. I thought was bringing in a lefty guy with, obviously having Penix. I thought it was a great move for Atlanta to have a veteran option out there. So if Penix, isn't ready to start the year, or if he's struggling, you can put Tua out there and it can be a good move. They brought back a couple former Falcons in Austin Hooper and Olamide Zaccheaus. It's just, extra guys out there. They brought in Jahan Dotson um, as another weapon out there. I think this Falcons team has improved the roster to where in a wide open NFC South, they can win this division. Tua, healthy Tua, which we've seen, 2023 and this year, we've seen a healthy Tua play really well. It's just, he needs to be healthy and he needs to have, a good system around him. And I think that'll work out with the Falcons. They didn't really lose much with just Kaden Ellis and Tyler Algier. Speaking of Algier, man, the Cardinals, um, I've liked the free agency. Isaac Seumalo to help protect whoever that quarterback is. They also will probably go tackle um, Maui Noah at 3. So you can start to fortify that offensive line for the future quarterback. Algier as another, running back out there, especially with James Conner coming off a huge injury. Same thing with Trey Benson. Kendrick Bourne, who has ties with Mike LaFleur because he was coming into the league. LaFleur was a part of the Niners staff when Bourne was drafted there. So, another weapon out there alongside Marv, Michael Wilson, and Trey McBride. Roy Lopez as a good nose stuffing defensive tackle to help this team out. Gardner Minshew is kind of another reliable veteran alongside Jacoby Brissett out there. It seems like they're going to be doing Brissett and Minshew as like the team starter this year, and just hoping to bring in a young guy in 27, which I think should be the right thinking. And I mean the Cardinals, have been able to make some good roster decisions to help this team out. I think of any other teams that might have had um good free agency. How about the Bengals? And not many big signings, but Boye Mafe and Brian Cook give this defense, better players. Mafe is more of a projection. $20 million is not, what he's worth now, but maybe Al Golden can get him to play, better. Brian Cook, phenomenal safety for the Chiefs, can help this team out. And, the Bengals knew they were going to lose Trey Hendrickson, but they needed to address this defense. And you bring in a couple guys who can raise this floor of the defense, maybe they'll be a lot better in 2026. When I don't want to say I want the Bengals to be bad, but um it can raise their floor as a team. So that maybe the defense isn't as bad as it has been the past couple of years. Um, but on the Browns, who bring in both Zion Johnson and Elton Jenkins to help out this interior offensive line. Obviously traded for Titus Howard before free agency. The Quincy Williams signing to replace Devin Bush, I thought was a good idea. The Browns just bringing in good football players and hopefully can have a decent year this year where they're not like at the bottom of the league and they're at least competitive throughout. We can talk about the Bears, not the Bengals. The Bears, who made a lot of good signings. The Kobe Bryant one I liked. We'll see what happens with Jaquan Brisker if he returns, and that would be a nice safety duo. But bringing in, it's not on here, but Devin Bush to replace Tremaine Edmonds to give them another defensive piece for Dennis Allen to use. Neville Gallimore as interior guy. Contavious Street. I like the Khalif Raymond move, especially trading away DJ Moore. Gonna need to bring in some other guys. I mean, they even lost Olamide Zaccheaus. Khalif Raymond, who comes from the Ben Johnson system, being from the Lions, can help this team out. And I think the Bears have made the right moves to where they can still be competing. And I want to talk about the Giants, who made a lot of moves, bringing a lot of former Ravens like League Stout, Ricard, Ardarius Washington, to help out this team and really just giving this team better floor. Tremaine Edmonds to replace Bobby Okereke. They could still go Sonny Styles to replace, to be aside him. Brought in Jermaine Illuminor, brought him back, I should say, to fortify the right tackle spot. The Greg Newsome signing I thought was an interesting one. Just a 1 year prove it deal to see if Newsome, former first round pick, could be a guy in the maybe in the long term plans at corner, especially when you lose Cordell Flott to free agency. And I mean, Darius Washington could be a nice safety when healthy. I love the Giants made some good moves to really make the floor better, which what a lot of teams need to do in free agency is make sure that their floor for the team isn't, 2, 3, 4 wins, and instead it's like 7, 6 wins where it's like they're able to be a lot more competitive, which is what we want to see. And I think a lot of teams who were really bad this past year have made those signings to make sure that they have the ability to not to be better in 2026 and instead of being like a bottom dweller. But that'll do it for today's video. Hope you guys like it. Hope you guys comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.